Mrs. Forrest?
Here.
Mrs. Dodd?
Here.
Mrs. Pastana?
Here.
And Mr. Carlson?
Here.
All present.
All present. All right, please stand if you can for the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll now move to Section 2A, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Received by Ms. Pastana,
Second.
supported by Ms. Vice President Forrest. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Agenda is approved as presented. We'll get right to recognitions. Ms. Root.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the Board of Education, and members of the community. We have several people in the audience that we're recognizing tonight, and not the least of which is our Huron Valley hero. And I'm very excited to introduce my colleague, Ms. Patricia Campbell, who will talk about our Huron Valley hero.
Thank you for allowing me to be here with all of you this evening. It is my honor and privilege to speak with you about Deputy Chatterson, and as our students call him, Deputy Ron. Deputy Ron has made Highland Elementary a priority while he is on patrol with the Oakland County Sheriff's Office in Highland Township, and has gone above and beyond for our school community. He is with us at drop-off in the mornings, walks through our classrooms and hallways, greeting our staff, students, and parents, and then returns again in the afternoons to do the same. Now, at Highland, we know that our students are not just at school to learn math and reading or science and social studies, but to learn how to make friends, navigate social situations, show grit, be safe, learn expected behavior, and always to do their best. We know that students will make mistakes and that is part of their learning, but we always expect them to learn, repair the harm, and then make it right. Deputy Chatterson has become a very special person at our school and is often requested by students to talk through situations, ask advice, and to help them repair the harm of some of those unexpected choices. For example, when I was talking through a situation with a student about how he was going to make it right, he had determined he needed to start by apologizing to his teacher. He was so nervous to go and do this, but he asked if Deputy Ron could go with him because it would be much easier for him to say the hard things that he needed to say with him by his side. And of course, Deputy Ron went with him. A couple weeks ago, one of our second graders was transferring to another school, and he loves Deputy Ron. And he always shares that he wants to be a police officer just like him when he grows up. Well, all on his own, on one of his last days at our school, Deputy Ron pulled up his patrol car to the front entrance and let our student check out his police car. He let him sit in it, ask questions, and as requested, he even turned the lights on for him. The ear-to-ear smile of that little guy is something that I will never forget. Deputy Ron always makes time for our kids, no matter what. He is seen as part of our staff, and one thing that I am most proud of is that our students are learning that police officers do not just show up when the bad things happen or when people are in trouble. They are learning that police officers are helpers at our school and helpers in our community. Webster says that the definition of a hero is a person admired for his achievements and noble qualities, and it is also someone who shows great courage. Deputy Ron, for all of the ways that you have shown kindness and great courage by showing up for us and for our students, you are admired. And tonight, we celebrate this very special achievement and this well-deserved honor of you being named a Huron Valley hero. Thing is, at Highland, we always knew you were a hero, and we are so happy that everyone else knows it now too. Thank you for partnering with us and being an important person in the lives of our students. Congratulations.
So Deputy Ron, on the behalf of the Huron Valley School Board and Huron Valley Schools, I'd like to bestow this honor for all that you do for our staff and students at Highland Elementary and everywhere else. We really appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go ahead and say a few words.
Real brief, I'm the one getting the recognition tonight, but I'm just a spoke in the wheel over at the school. The staff over there are really the stars, what they do every day. What I see and experience at that school every day, led by Principal Campbell, right on down. Some of them are here today. Like I said, I'm the one getting the recognition today, but they're the ones that are the true heroes doing what they do every day. Thank you.
Thank you.
So continuing in that tradition of recognizing the everyday heroes in our building, we are also recognizing many parents tonight who make a difference in so many ways as they come together to support our schools. We invited representatives from all our PTO, PTA groups, our parent ambassador groups, the district parent council. And so tonight we're going to ask any one of them or all of them to come up here, and we're going to, with the help of our board president, Mr. Sean Carlson, recognize them with a coin. So I know I sent out lots of invitations. We had some RSVPs, multiple RSVPs. So I'm just going to run through it. And if you're here representing the PTO or the PTA from Country Oaks, Heritage, Highland, Johnson, Kurtz, Lakewood, Oxbow, or Spring Mills, if you could come right up here, center stage, we'd appreciate it. Any of those? Come on, come on, don't be shy. If you're also here representing White Lake Middle School, Mira Middle School, or Oak Valley Middle School, please come on up. Come on, don't be shy. Yes, 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 yes. Come on up. These are our parent ambassadors from our middle schools as well. And if you're here representing the Lakeland High School, Milford High School, or the District Parent Council, could you also please come on up and join this crew? And I know I see some of you out there, so if you're being super shy, please don't.
Just wanted to say a few things. We definitely wanted to recognize the parents in this school district. You know, I was taught early on when I took my board seat a few years ago from Dr. Karate that what's important for our students in Huron Valley to be successful is to make sure that we have great administrators, principals, that we have great teachers, and that we have engaged parents that are involved with their students' education. And when we have that engagement with parents, we are more likely to see higher grades and test scores, improved behaviors in the classroom and social skills, and also regular attendance. So now more than ever, coming out of the darkness of COVID, we really need our parents, that you were there all along the way as well. But we need to make sure that we have one voice for our children in the school districts. And in these PTA, PTOs, parent ambassadors, district parent council are so critical and important to Huron Valley. And we just wanted to say from the bottom of our hearts here at Huron Valley School Board of Education and this district, thank you so much for your volunteerism. And you truly are Huron Valley heroes. Thank you so much.
Anywhere, Lindsay.
Let's see. If you can't see me, I can't see you, Mr. Wiseman. You can see part of me. I think we're just a little weird. Perfect. So if we could have one more round of applause for Deputy Chatterson and our parent volunteers. And next is our highlights. And we're highlighting this evening the Huron Valley Community Coalition. And I believe Mr. Tavernier wanted to say a few words.
Thanks, Kim. Just want to welcome Randy Root and Jordan Nidek to the podium. They're going to give us an overview this evening of some of the highlights of the Huron Valley Community Coalition. One of the things that I think is unique about our Huron Valley Coalition is the partnership we have as a school district with the coalition. Huron Valley Schools is proud to partner with the coalition in the work that both Randy and Jordan have done to really bring together a community representative of members of across the district. And so I'm going to turn it over to Randy and Jordan. They're going to give us a little update and some highlights this evening on the work of the coalition.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Yeah, the relationship between the school district and the coalition is something that a lot of people don't understand, and it's a little bit different depending on what community you're in. We have our own set of bylaws. We have our own board of directors. We don't really, as a staff, really work for the school district. We generate our own payroll and other expenses are paid through grants that we put together and submit locally and at a federal level. So that amounts to about $245,000 a year now. When I got here in 2016, it was about $15,000 a year. So things have changed dramatically. The school district is what is called our fiscal agent. It's essentially, in simple terms, sort of an accounting service that we provide, that they provide, and in return we pay 3.98% a year for that. So it's around a little short of $10,000 for that service. In addition, we contributed about a little short of $110,000 to such things in the school district as mental wellness kits that social workers are using with students, especially these last couple of years. We paid for a couple of social workers to work the summer academy this last year. And there's a variety of things. I won't get into it, but those of you who have this packet, you'll see that there's a long, lengthy list of that right there. Because what's really important is not how much money we spent or what kind of activities that we've been participating in, or even what strategies we've been implementing, but more about what does that mean to our kids? What has that done to the behaviors of our students regarding drug and alcohol use? And we just got the most recent MiFi data, and it blew my mind. I mean, we've already been trending really well, but Jordan's going to share with you the numbers. The details actually are in that packet too, because it gets quite lengthy, but she can share some of the highlights with you, because it was really beyond my wildest dreams, the numbers that we've been able to achieve, the decrease across the board in all substance use since 2016. So I will let Jordan share that with you, and then after she's done, if anyone has questions, we can talk some more. Jordan?
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Please ignore my typo. Obviously, I did not have enough coffee. It is May, not March. Got the M part right, though. So I know charts can be really boring, but the really cool thing is look at those lines. So again, we all remember our math classes that, that scale is not out of 100, it's only out of 40. But we see that across since the coalition was here in 2014, but that big jump in funding and the ability to have 2 paid staff members did occur in 2016. But you'll see that our numbers are trending downward. We hear a lot with the kids saying everyone's doing it. That is entirely false. Most of our kids are making awesome, healthy choices to stay away from drugs and alcohol in their lives. What's really important that I wanted to note to you guys is the fact that even with societal changes, with the fact that alcohol is everywhere you blink, it's there. It's at every table. It's when you go to a restaurant, they're talking about the specials before they even talk to you about food. With all of that and the legalization of marijuana, we still are seeing a downward shift in our kids. The kids know that they need to stay away from this stuff. They're making those safe and healthy choices. And the adults are making those choices to support them, having those important conversations and things that they need to do to help them make those good choices. So in your packet, again, I didn't give you the whole thing. My FI is incredibly lengthy. I just gave you our 30-day use numbers where you can kind of see our trends across that and these numbers with the actual amounts listed for you. But who cares about numbers, right? We care about humans. We care about souls of students. So I broke it down for you. I made an estimate based on some of our averages over our population. But on our high school level, if we say we have 2,500 high school students, and as a representation in 2014, our 30-day use for alcohol, I'm really sorry, there's another typo on there. I am proof of this before I sent it over. I apologize. But in 2014, our numbers were at 26.9% of students that on a 30-day basis were drinking alcohol. That comes down to 673 kids. In 2022, our number is down to 12.2% or 305 students. That is a 368 kid difference. 368 students that made a different decision, that made the choice to stay away from alcohol on an average basis, that's 368 kids that decided how many less risks could possibly have happened, how many other consequences that were completely resolved because of the fact they chose not to drink alcohol, and how many healthy choices they made in lieu of that with their friends and that expansion. So it's an awesome thing to be part of Huron Valley. We love our kids, and this shows that we're making an impact, and I was so excited. I'm a total data nerd. If you want to go through even more specifics and all that, come talk to me. We'll talk all night. But again, thank you for having us and letting us really show we're changing kids' lives every day.
I'll actually take that another step further, because it's not just us, it's the community and the relationship with the schools. We're saving kids' lives. It's nothing less than that. There are kids who are going to, experiment and that sort of thing. But for us to operate under false presumptions about kids all doing it like Jordan was saying, you see that if we provide support for parents, support for kids, the information people need, and implement proven strategies in the community, that's a huge difference. Less than half of the kids who reported drinking alcohol in the last 30 days that's just remarkable. It's remarkable. I can't get over it. So, by the way, I should mention one other thing. The school district provides some in-kind services beyond what we talked about. We have office space, we have phone service, we have technology support, internet. Am I forgetting anything else? But anyway, so it's a good relationship, and it's sort of the envy of at least the people in Oakland County, but I've talked to other colleagues from around the country, and it's tough to get that kind of a relationship going. Both ends of it, like in any other relationship, have to provide value, and I've really focused on that. I come from a sales background, and when people come to any of you on this board and say, what the heck are you doing this with the school board or with the coalition for? You know why. These numbers we showed you are why. This is the value we provide. So I'd also like to mention that I'm very happy that Jordan is going to be replacing me come October 1st. I'll be retiring at the end of September. And so that was kind of my dream. She's been somebody who I've been working with very closely. She's like family, but beyond that, she's a consummate professional. She's going to be better at this job than I ever was. And she's going to take us to new places. Although, good luck with these numbers getting much better.
I know, right?
So anyway,
Work
with
myself
that,
out of a job.
with that, if anybody has any questions for either Jordan or me, we're happy to.
Ms. Cotter?
Yes, and either one could take the question. I'm assuming that when students share this information, when you do your survey, there's no names on them, are there?
Right. Well, this is another huge, I kind of forgot, like maybe the biggest thing that the school district does for the coalition and for the community is allows us access to that data so we can follow it. The MyFi survey is a self-reporting survey, but it is very highly respected. And school districts who aren't as willing to accept the fact that there are problems or don't want to talk about the problems that kids are having with drug and alcohol use sometimes will shut that data down and won't make it available. We need that. We needed that in the beginning so we could assess the situation in the community, and now we need it to go back and evaluate whether the strategies that we have implemented are having the desired effect. And without that, you're just shooting in the dark.
Thank you. I also have a comment to both you and Jordan. Your reach out, the coalition reaches out and starts with our youngest children, and you've done some instructional or educational program regarding drugs and alcohol, starting at our lower levels.
Right.
And I think in Huron Valley, we really appreciate the work that you've done, because I know I've seen it in the buildings. You see your posters all over, and the things you've contributed to our kids. So thanks for all you do. You've done a great job with your coalition.
Thanks for that. Sure.
Yeah, Lindsay, thank you. I just want to say, yeah, so our mental health kits and our positive message posters for these kids, we started Apollo. We have a poster in the baby room, and we get them all the way up to, we do a lot of programs with Harbor High, with the 4th grade, the 7th grade, life skills at the middle schools. We try it all of Huron Valley. It's not when there's already a problem or they're already using substances. We want to build those life skills where they can say no out of any situation that they're not comfortable with at that early level. So that way, as they continue, it's a no-brainer to say no to the drugs and alcohol. Thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Ms. Forrest?
Sure, just a comment. I'm just amazed at this in green here, the vaping has gone down so much since 2018. When I was elected to the board in 2018, vaping was going up at alarming rates. I know the board took up the cause, as well as our schools and you guys, and for that to drop so dramatically. I know that there's a big push to take, vaping out of gas stations and whatnot, not sell to minors, but this is amazing work. And it kind of takes everybody to make it happen. So I'm looking to get that down to nothing there, Jordan. Thank you.
I'm working on it.
Yeah, we are working on it. And that is definitely a we thing. We've
Yeah.
had to work with the schools, with administrators, teachers, students. We worked with law enforcement. We worked with the courts, changing consequences, and all these things kind of together. Plus, I think the cool factor's slipping a little bit on this vaping. But we do remain kind of concerned about the level being kind of steady at the middle school. But that's part of our overall plan to kind of push our focus down to the middle school a little bit more anyway for all substances, because we're finding, excuse me, that it's important to catch these kids while they're thinking about their decisions about their first use, because that is one of the prime indicators for problems with substance use disorder later in life. So I think you're going to see not just leveling off with those numbers in the middle schools, but actually go down too.
I appreciate that, and also some role modeling from our older teenagers down into our middle schools to our younger ones. So you guys are doing great work. Thank you.
Another, I could go on all night, but I promise this is the last one, because this is also something really cool and something that I was trying for 5-6 years to get done, and finally happened with the help of the Junior Optimists International chapter, particularly here at Milford. I think it was going to happen at Lakeland, but their advisor was out on maternity leave for a while. But they've been to, I think, 5 elementary schools with high school students who have been trained. We arranged the training for them to do peer resistance skills training for the upper elementary grades. And so they've been going into the schools, and the young ones love when the high school kids come around and show them some attention and give them some information, much better than adults coming and talking to them, so.
Ms. Dodd?
Randy, I'm just going to tell you, when you said things have changed dramatically, sort of blasé, things changed dramatically because of you. You came in and you were willing to look at this crazy big grant and say, well, I'm going to write this. And a lot of people would have said, well, I'm not going to write this grant. This is too much. I don't know how to do this. And every time you talk about it like, oh, it's no big deal. I just wrote this grant. It was a huge deal. And you completely changed the course of what was happening at Huron Valley because you were willing to write the grant. And then you were willing to put the time and energy into becoming a certified prevention specialist, both you and Jordan, and really to dedicate your time and energy to making this. It's not your life's work, but it certainly is your life's work for Huron Valley. And we can't even express enough. You kind of dropped the retirement bomb here as a afterthought in the conversation, but it certainly is something we're going to miss. This is huge work and a huge commitment from you and from Jordan to contribute to our kids and our communities and our families. And I, for one, really appreciate everything you've done, from just, well, I'm going to write a grant, all the way through to now watching these numbers go down with the work that you're doing, the strategies you're putting in place. So thanks to both of you. Thanks to you. We've got a while, a couple months, and Jordan, looking forward to a lot more.
Thank you, Laura.
Ms. Pastana?
Well,
Our
Laura
board
literally said
president
what I
over
wanted
here.
to say, but
I didn't mean to talk over you, sorry.
that's okay. I'm fortunate enough to sit on the coalition board. And I don't remember the year, 2014 or 15, 15, that Randy and I met in a coffee shop and he said, I'm going to revive the coalition. And I'm like, great, because we haven't really had it in years. And all of a sudden he's got this huge grant that he wrote. And like Laura said, nobody really expected anybody to get the grant on the first year, but there goes Randy. And it's just constant thing. You have just evolved from literally nothing, $15,000 a year, to all the stuff that you guys are doing. Then you bring Jordan on and you mentor her, and she's been a big part of this. I can't express how lucky I feel to not only know both of you, but to be able to work with you on the coalition. And I am just one person, but I know there's thousands of people who appreciate all that you have done for our kids in Huron Valley. So
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
It is a labor of love. I didn't know what I was getting into, but it's really turned out to be a lot of fun. I'd stick around, but Jordan's making me leave. Actually.
I don't want you to go.
She got.
All right, our
better
next
than me, what
comment,
can I say?
Mr. Weissman. Listening to both Laura and Denise, I think the problem with Randy is he's just too darn modest. We all up here appreciate everything you've done, the relationships that you've built, not only with the school district, obviously, but with the students that make up the school district. And you've become a valuable resource for our parents. As we've gone through the last few years, the more resources that we have available to our parents and to our students is enormous. You make it sound so easy. We know how difficult it is. And we're very excited to have Jordan fill those big shoes that you have. I will also tell you that we are the envy of many, many other communities that do not have a coalition like we have, and one that's tied directly to our school district. Because I've had experience with other parents in other school districts that don't have that resource. And one of the takeaways that I had in our teaching, learning and technology group last year when we met with our students was the opportunity for our students to know where to go to get help. And our coalition is a place where our students feel comfortable in a very embracing way of thought and process to really express their views and express their feelings. And I appreciate that, and we all appreciate that. And I think one of the big pieces, you throw out the mental health kits, enormous tools for our parents. But I will also say, what an enormous tool that having posters in our schools is, because that positive thought, that positive atmosphere is something that not only has a direct effect on our students, but our parents. And once again, it's another tool in their toolkit to be able to reach out and find help. And what
you are part of what, and the coalition is what it makes Huron Valley School District such a special place for everyone, not just our students, but our parents and our community members. So thank you both.
Amy?
I just want to echo what Tom was saying. My interaction with the Community Coalition is by being a parent and receiving your tamper-resistant stickers. Genius. But it's also through the business community where you have come alongside business owners who are also parents in the community and have educated us, whether it was in our Narcan training or how to look at your child's bedroom in a whole different light. I appreciate the fact that you have taken into consideration that, yes, we must educate our students and we must give them the tools in their toolbox to say no, but you've also educated the entire community and you've given us the ability to collectively and collaboratively work. So from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you to both of you. Randy, you will be greatly missed. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with you in that capacity in the business side. Jordan, I still work with you and I treasure that relationship. So congratulations to you, and Randy, enjoy retirement. And these numbers, they make me tear up. They are amazing. We still have 368 kids to go, right? But we're gonna get
Until
there.
that number 0, we're gonna keep going.
That's right. So congratulations.
All right, last word here. I appreciate everything you've done, but there's a number that we didn't talk about here tonight that's not in your report, but I'm going to give you some qualitative feedback here tonight. I got on this board in 2008, and on average, every school year since 2008 had probably about 6 expulsions, of which 4 of those had to do with drugs in school. In the last 4 or 5 years, we've been lucky if there's been one. So just from a board's perspective of where we were when I started on the school board to where we are now, and the only difference is this coalition. So thank you to both of you for all the work.
Thanks for the data. That's what we didn't track.
I got it. See, I brought my notepad on it.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much. All right, we will now move to items from the superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening to everybody that is here this evening, and to those of you, looks like all 7 of you who are watching online right now, welcome. And so I have a few items to go through this evening. First and foremost, I wanted to touch on the task force work that's been ongoing, that our Board of Education put together to focus, just to remind everyone, 3 primary focuses. One around the social emotional well-being of our students, certainly coming out of the pandemic. That was an area and has remained an area of focus for us as a school district and a school community. Second is really looking at opportunities to enhance our current program offerings for our students. Another big focus for us, and wanting to get some feedback from our families and our parents in particular around how we grow out of the pandemic and into continuing to be creative and look at what's next for us as a Huron Valley community and school district. And then the third, looking at really the new economy. What jobs are we preparing students for today that maybe don't even exist? And so doing that work has been really interesting as well. We had a panel a couple of sessions ago, which was very informative with some of our local business leaders that President Carlson was instrumental in putting together and facilitating. And then our last meeting, we actually had an opportunity to say, you know, if we put aside any of our cognitive anchors that we have that might, sort of self-imposed limitations on where we might go as a school district, and putting aside the assumed constraints, things that we've come up with that say we can't do X because of Y, because of compliance, because of the Michigan Department of Education, because of money, because of the legislature, because of you name it. If we put those things aside, what would our schools look like? And it was really a freeing conversation. It was freeing because it just gave us an opportunity to think outside of any rules or limitations that we feel have been imposed on us. And now really the next step is how do we take all that data that we've collected over the course of this year, all these themes that have emerged in terms of social emotional strategies, in terms of program enhancements, in terms of preparing students for the new economy, and really transition that into what the next 5 to 10 years of our school district is going to look like from a strategic planning perspective. And so what I want to share with our community is that we've done a lot of work this year. We've done a tremendous amount of data collection. We've done a lot of research. We've had a lot of conversations, really difficult conversations in some instances. And I'm really excited about the next chapter as we begin thinking about what comes next. We actually are coming to the close here shortly of our current 5-year strategic plan. I'm actually looking at doing a presentation to the board and the community in the coming month or two regarding where we landed on that strategic plan in preparation for what's next. And I'm really excited about what's next. I would also be remiss if I did not mention that as part of that task force, we actually had a parent resource night. That was something that was born out of the task force meetings as well. I should say that we have had parent resource nights in the past, but this was a great opportunity for us to resurrect and really sort of come up with the new genesis of what that looks like. And so a special shout out to, Terry Thompson, our Director of Student Services, our entire Student Services Department, and then all of our social workers. They did an outstanding job. We had a keynote speaker, Dr. Rooney. She's a local therapist. She was outstanding. And then we had several breakout sessions. In fact, one of our breakout sessions was Jordan from the coalition, and she did a great job as well, from what I hear. So that's my task force update. I want to share that for those of you who do not know, this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. It's a special time of year. I prepared a few thoughts here. I just wanted to share with you. I wanted to take a moment and thank our teachers for their dedication to a profession that focuses upon the growth of our society, the commitment to continuing to build a robust democracy, and the development of our young people. Teachers are the cornerstone of the education profession. And I want to thank in particular our Huron Valley teachers for their investment in our students. What we've continued to see from them day in and day out, week in and week out, especially throughout this pandemic, has been unparalleled. And I'm incredibly grateful for their dedication, their service, their work ethic, and their continued efforts to just go above and beyond every single day to meet the needs of our kids. So for our parents and students, I want to ask you, this is an ask from me to you, please take a moment and thank a teacher this week, whether it's, a handwritten note, a phone call, an email, just tell them what how they've had an impact on your child, because sometimes, our teachers just need to hear that, especially these days. So I also want to congratulate our 3 Huron Valley Schools Teachers of the Year. They were in the spinal column, and I want to just take a moment and recognize Mallory Geniak from Heritage Elementary. She was our elementary Teacher of the Year. Angela Eckerly was our high school Teacher of the Year, and then Carrie Leach was our middle school Teacher of the Year. We're incredibly proud of all 3 of them. This is a school district of excellence, and our teachers exemplify that every single day. I actually just heard before I came here this evening that Mr. Head at Lakeland was named our Region 7 MEA Teacher of the Outstanding Educator of the Year as well, which, I shouldn't be surprised. Another HVS teacher takes an accolade. And then I have a short video to show, and you're going to recognize Miss Gleason, who has just dedicated countless hours to our hot robotics team. But again, this is in honor of Teacher Appreciation Week. So if we could just show that.
Lori Gleason is passionate. She goes above and beyond for her students.
She was really good about giving you confidence to do stuff by yourself. And she's there letting you know, no, you can do it.
Thank you for being an inspiration. If it wasn't for you, I don't know if I would have pursued the career path and the education that I had.
My designs are in millions of vehicles, and that is because of you. I'm proud of myself, and I hope that you're also proud of me.
Chevy is proud to thank teachers everywhere with a special educator offer.
Look under your seat.
So, Lori, I just want to give you a shout out as well and thank you. I've had an opportunity to visit the gym. Next commercial. I've had an opportunity to visit the GM Proving Grounds, and I've had opportunities to speak with Lori about her work with the Hot Robotics team. And I'll tell you, you're not going to find a more passionate person. She literally like oozes science, if that's possible. It's amazing how much she loves the work that she does. And she's just fantastic along with all of our teachers. So teachers, we appreciate you. Thank you for everything that you do. And my last comment this evening, Mr. President, I just wanted to take a moment and also congratulate three of our administrators. You saw Tricia Campbell up here a little bit earlier, Lena Nemeth, who's our Director of Data Analysis and Assessment for the district, and then Nick Peruski. All three graduated from Oakland University last week, earning their doctorate degree. I think we have a special place in Huron Valley, a commitment to excellence. And I think that is just exemplified every day that our staff are going back to learn more, to do better, and it's for our kids. So with that said, that concludes my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to item 4 on the agenda, items from the board. Madam Secretary.
I have no correspondence tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Treasurer.
Nothing tonight.
Madam Vice President. Trustee Dodd.
Nothing.
Trustee Wiseman. Trustee Grismkowski. Nothing. All right. Moving right along. Student leadership comment. I did want to mention that I'll be organizing with John Tavernier and the superintendent and a few of the board members. We are going to reach out to our student leaders in each of our buildings, Harbor High, as well as the IA, Lakeland High School and Milford High School. To those seniors, the president and vice president will be having a luncheon with them to get some of their feedback as they're exiting our school district. So more to come on that. Association comment. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Lisa Dunleavy. I'm a teacher consultant over at Muir Middle School, and I'm also the middle school union rep. Jennifer Hollander asked me to speak tonight since she had the big wedding of her daughter over the weekend, and I said I would do that. So I'm here tonight to speak with you about a class that I'm very passionate about teaching. It's called Skills for Success. I taught that class about 10 years ago, but I revamped it and taught it in a different way this year. I had asked Mr. Digsby, my principal, if I could take the first month of the class and focus mainly on the social emotional piece and connections and just building a family-like atmosphere within the classroom. So that's what I did. And the differences that were made because of that were outstanding. So the way I went about that was I started the class every day with some mindfulness breathing. And you wouldn't think that would make a big deal, but it did. And it was just 1 minute of just breathing in, holding it and breathing out and just regrouping. Then we did circle time, which is we made a big circle in the room, and it was a way to connect with the kids where they can learn things about me, I could learn things about them, and they could learn things about their classmates. And we did that every day to build those relationships. Another thing that I did is I focused on service and leadership. So we did lots of TED Talks, and we learned about not just great leaders in the world, but how we can be leaders within our friend groups or within our building. And we focused on that as well. We also did the service piece where, you know, when you do something for somebody else, it makes you feel good about yourself as well. So we brainstormed and the kids came up with doing a Valentine's Day party for our categorical classroom, our students that have challenges with their mental capacities. The kids literally created the entire party themselves and did it for an hour during our 3rd hour class period. They created games, they created music playlists for musical chairs. They had one boy came in and I didn't even know he was doing it, but he made little party favors because he said, whenever you go to a party, you always have favors. So he made individual party favors for each one of those kids. And when we debriefed after the party and talked about service, I think my kids got more out of it than the kids that actually participated in the party. They just couldn't stop talking about it for days and they wanted to do another party. So we will be doing a year-end party for those kids as well. Another piece of the class that I was really passionate about was these kids they're at-risk kids and they don't have opportunities to see anything past what's in front of them right now. So I had we did some career talks and we brought in a friend of mine oversees the Lansing Community College Tech Center. So he came in with swag and gift bags for the kids and talked about all the different types of careers they could have, whether it was linemen or welding or electricians. And he brought a slideshow and talked to the kids about that. We're also planning a trip to OSTC next Thursday to take the kids to go see what they have to offer for them, because not all of these kids are going to want to go to college, nor do they have the capacity to go to college. But I wanted to open doors for them and let them see that there's other things outside of, you know, career nights where it's just focused mainly on college. There's other things that these kids can do. So with that being said, we also did a reality store. I was watching TV one night and I'm super passionate about this class. So I had seen like a high school that had a bunch of stations and the kids went to each of the stations to learn and keep a budget and learn about like how much their expenses cost for going to the store to buy clothes for their family or budgeting money to go to the grocery store. So we had 13 stations set up in our media center and our school counselor had a curriculum for that. So I got all the volunteers, teachers in the building, my mom, my brother. I mean, I called on everybody to make it successful for the kids who they really enjoyed it. They had never, I don't think, seen or just experienced all the different bills that you have to pay on a daily basis. And one of my students said to me, Mrs. Dunleavy, I kind of feel sorry for my dad. I didn't realize like all the things he had to pay for on a daily basis. That's a lot. No wonder he's stressed out all the time. So that was interesting to hear their perspective on it. Feedback from the kids, you know, I asked them, you know, what do you think about this class? How is this class? It's only been a semester. We did it second semester. So they've only been in there for 10, well, now we're about 15 weeks. And the kids said that it's really created a connection for them. It's a sense of family. It's helping them be more motivated. It helps them with their grades because we also do a lot of data finding on a weekly basis. The kids pull their grades and they pull their missing assignments, and it's just not, okay, I have an A and I have 3 missing assignments. No, what are those missing assignments? And they journal and they keep track of their own data. And then we have personal conversations on a weekly basis where I pull them up to my desk and ask them how they're doing. And one time I made some phone calls because some of the kids were doing so great. And one of the boys was like, Mrs. Dunleavy, will you call my mom? And I said, sure. So come on up. So let's look at what, you know, where we can talk about things. And went back into my office and we called her and she's like, oh no, what did he do now? Because these kids aren't kids that are, you know, are great attendance or are kids that are really with the academics. These are kids that have troubles. So after she had said that, and it was on speaker, you could just see his face. But then I said, no, I'm really calling for all these reasons. You know, his grades, he has all A's and B's now. He had D's and E's. He has, you know, just 5 missing assignments. And then you could just see him light up. And then when his mom talked back and said, oh my gosh, I'm so proud of him. And she went through a litany of all the reasons why she was proud of him. He had tears in his eyes. So that was just my, you know, just a solid for me that this class has made a huge difference. So the last thing I want to part with, 2 things. One is that I really, you know, this has meant a lot to these kids. We offer this in all 3 middle schools, this class, Skills for Success. And I just, because I'm so passionate about it, I would love to see it as a freshman class at the high school where they come in and they don't feel lost again, because I've made so much progress with them and they're just so excited about learning and doing well and they're motivated. And I'm going to leave you with the last words of one of my students today. I asked the kids to write a letter to a teacher of their choice, and this one chose me. And these are the words she said towards the end of her letter. This class has helped me both mentally and physically. I used to hate the thought of going to school, but this class helped me love the thing I'm forced to do by law. It also helped my grades tremendously. I was stuck in a pit with no way out for the first 2 terms, but this class gave me a ladder and a path to success. Thank you for the opportunity for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you. Ms. Cotter.
She's still here? Yeah, she is. Mrs. Dunleavy, normally we don't comment on comments. However, I wanted to comment to you and thank you for the great job you're doing at Muir with that particular class. And I'll tell you why. The second thing you said when those students came in the room is you had a circle time for them. I was a kindergarten teacher and always started the day with a circle time. Mr. Digsby will remember that. But that's your opportunity to connect with everybody and have alone time one-on-one. So that is the way to connect with kids. And I'm so glad to see that you're using that strategy with our middle school kids, because they're no different than kindergartners.
No, they're not.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll move to public comment. For agenda items, Ms. Levin.
First, thank you for recognizing parent volunteers tonight. I'm sure I can speak for many of the people recognized tonight that we are glad to be able to participate and volunteer again this year, and we love being part of our schools. I would like to comment tonight on a couple things from the agenda. As the school year starts to wind down and board meetings turn into budget and organizational meetings, I would like to publicly request or suggest a couple items for the board to consider as you start looking ahead. First, I would like to formally request that the Board of Education meetings get pushed back to 7 p.m. like they used to be. Meetings were moved up to 6 p.m. this year, and despite several requests from me and other parents to move meetings back to 7 p.m., meetings stayed at 6 p.m. This time is very hard for working parents and any parents, as this falls right at dinner time for many families, and for some people, including myself, our workday doesn't even end until 6 p.m. In order for me to participate in these meetings, I have to leave work early every time there's a Board of Education meeting. I spoke with Mr. Carlson about this and shared data that I gathered myself that showed 65% of parents support a later meeting time. My data was dismissed, saying my sample size was too small. However, I did not see a new survey go out to the district to try to get a bigger sample size. I'm not the only one who wants a later time, but I am one of the only ones who attends these meetings every other week. People who aren't going to attend, no matter what time the meetings are, really shouldn't get a vote. But for the sake of data, let's give everyone a vote. I'm asking the board to send out a survey, not buried in a newsletter or anywhere else, simply asking the public what time they prefer meetings to start. A vote of I don't care should then go with the majority who choose 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. I'm hoping as this board resets for next school year that this survey can be sent, reviewed, and implemented. Second, I would like to make a suggestion that the board consider going back to 4-year terms. Terms were 2 years, then 4 years, and became 6 years not too long ago. 6 years is a long time to commit to anything. College is only 4 years. The President of the United States only serves for 4 years. Yes, it takes time for people to learn how to be on a board, and it takes time to affect change. But I think the 6-year term is a factor that discourages good people from possibly running for a Board of Education position and needs to be reconsidered. Again, I hope as you embark on reorganizing and resetting plans for the upcoming school year that you will take both of these items, meeting times and election terms, into consideration. Thank you.
All right, we'll move to reports from the board committees, standing committees. The executive committee met. Let me just get my notes here.
I wasn't allowed to give public comment because I wasn't able to sign up. Can I please give public comment?
Lori, can you get her a public comment in regards to the comments? There is another public comment area at the end of the, what agenda item is that?
The task force.
The task force. Go ahead. Can you please state your name and your residence?
Absolutely. My name is Connie Johnson. I'm a long-term resident here of Milford. I wanted to thank you, first of all, for letting me come in. I was able to walk in just at the last, as the meeting was beginning, so I wasn't able to sign up for public comment. I wanted to say that regarding the task force, the only thing that I heard in terms of information was that it was on SEL, social emotional learning. And you spoke of work that was done, but where is the work? And what are the benchmarks for the work being done? And where's the transparency in showing the work and reporting it to the public? I think it's really important when you have a task force going that when you present to a public body, that all the information be made available. Also, prior to coming to the meeting tonight, I noted that when I tried to pull the agenda, there's no supporting documentation for anything that's on the agenda. I thought perhaps that was a decision based on bylaws. I then went to the minutes reported, and all of the items on the agenda, which should have supporting and note supporting documentation, don't have supporting documentation. So me as a member of the public that wants to know how these decisions are being made and by whom they are being made, I don't have that information. And again, as transparency and part of the public body, I'd like to have that information made available. May it be something like a circle time for the public. So I'd respectfully request that the board make this information available without having to email or request it or put in a FOIA request. And that is it. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Are there any other members that were not able to fill out a public comment? They are to my left, your right, as you come in the door. If you do have a non-agenda item, you can fill that out and speak at the second half of the agenda. All right. We will move to standing reports. The executive committee met on April 25th at the administration building at 9:30 a.m. on Monday, and in attendance were myself, Vice President Forrest, Trustee Weisman, and Dr. Salah. We discussed the regular May 2nd regular board meeting agenda. We went over Neola policies in particular. We spent a lot of time, about an hour and a half or so, on the 000 bylaws, which are on the new business meeting for tonight. We also discussed the Oakland School Board Association designee and election resolution that will be coming before this body, and I believe it's also on new business this evening. We had a report from Dr. Salah on shared plans to introduce 4-day office hours during as a pilot during the summer months. And then there was also a discussion on strategic planning. In particular, we had some discussions about all the work that the task force is doing. The task force is scheduled, is wrapping up its work. It's been over the last 6 months that we've been meeting as a group. We've covered social and emotional learning, the new economy, as well as enhanced programming to basically close the gap on the learning loss that's happened during the COVID pandemic. So all of that data that we've been tracking will be shared with this board at the next board meeting, as Dr. Salah had mentioned earlier, and is framing our thinking for the strategic plans as well. The furniture distribution, we had a conversation with Mr. Reby on that. Then the posting of the Director of Communications and Community Relations position. I'm looking at Ms. Rutt. I'm not sure if she's feeling any guilt as I'm looking at her. And the security recommendation, Dr. Salah shared a copy of the Recon Management Security Audit with the Executive Committee. So, and then there was also a discussion on the WOTA discussion of having a discussion on potential community partnership there as well as we continue to walk through that. Next board executive committee meeting is scheduled for May 31st at 9:30. Is May 31st Memorial Day? I believe it is. Oh, is it the day after? Okay. So, and that we concluded, I believe, about 12:15. So that is the report, and we'll move to TLT. Ms. Dodd.
Sure. Teaching, learning and technology took place on April 22nd at 10 a.m. at the administration building. We called to order at 10:05. Present were myself, Lindsay Cotter, Denise Pastana, John Trevernier, Dr. Salah, Jennifer Bjorkman, Martin Lindberg, Dr. Nemeth, and Terry Thompson. We had no public comment. Regular agenda items, we discussed board policies, the 5,000 series, which included the Code of Conduct. The committee reviewed the Neola policies related to Student Code of Conduct. Policies were recommended to appear under new business on the next regular Board of Education agenda, so they will be on the agenda this evening. Also covered in that area is enrollment and our next review, first reading, or the first reading of the enrollment and health services happened at that meeting. We will do a second review at our next meeting. And we've cross-referenced everything. The committee is hopefully going to have that reviewed. And then we're 2/3 of the way through. We have another third to go, and it is a lot. So we're working our way through. Next, we talked about the Teacher Cadet Program. The committee reviewed the high school's courses as part of the career and tech education programs, which prepare students in early childhood and teacher preparation education fields. Currently, students can participate in the Teacher Cadet intern experience as students in Huron Valley schools. It was recommended that enrollment history and opportunities to connect with our early childhood department be explored. More information will be brought back at a future meeting. Under other, we have some no consent agenda items on the agenda this evening. We discussed a health services partnership. Member Cotter inquired about health services partnership that may exist specifically for students that may need eye care. Mrs. Thompson will be following up with this. We also discussed open enrollment. Dr. Salah shared the open enrollment deadline of April 30th is quickly approaching. The current enrollment of HVVA is low in many grade levels. As a result, the program offering may be in a different format than it has been in prior years. Principals will be reaching out to families next week, which has happened. We talked about summer hours and the idea of spreading 40 hours amongst 4 days instead of 5, and a pilot that will probably happen this summer. We discussed Highland Elementary supports and provided an update on continuing support for programming at Highland Elementary. We discussed the International Academy, and Dr. Salah provided an update on the International Academy. Our next meeting is June 3rd. Our next meeting was June 3rd, but it was moved to June 1st at 2:30. So the next meeting is, oh wait, that's a future meeting well in advance. Our next meeting is April 22nd at 10 a.m. at the administration building. So this Friday, 10 a.m. and we adjourned at 12:17 p.m.
May 6th. This Friday, May 6th. There was a typo in the minutes. It's May 6th. It's this Friday.
This,
At 10
I
a.m.
read it properly.
Yes.
Just was the wrong day. May 6th. So this Friday at the administration building, 10 o'clock.
All right, thank you. Finance and operations.
Finance and Operations met on Friday, April 29th at the Administration Building. We started the meeting at 11:08. Present were myself, Mr. Wiseman, Ms. Cotter, Dr. Salah, Mr. Van Gotham, Mr. Reby, Mr. Roberts, Mrs. Kerrigan, Ms. Maruskin, and Ms. Timberlake from Clark. There was no public comment. Tonight, on the consent agenda, we talked about the My Peer amended and restated consortium agreement. Jeffrey spoke on behalf of the agreement. The 2021 year was the final year of the subsidy, therefore no subsidies apply to the 21-22. Oakland Schools is asking member districts to enter into an amended and restated consortium agreement that will run through 2026-27. We are asking the board to approve the extension of this contract for the updated term with no additional costs at this time. Under unfinished business, we talked about playground equipment. It was recommended that the Board of Education award Great Lakes Recreation the contract for new playground equipment for all 8 elementary schools in the amount of $1,080,000 and a contingency in the amount of $60,000. This is $7,500 per school for unforeseen items. New business, we talked about the Oakland Schools ISD budget. It was summarized and discussed with the committee. We are asking the board to support the attached resolution in support of the Oakland School 2022-23 budget as required by law. We discussed the bond construction update. Becky from Clark Construction updated us on bid pack 4. There are 9 remaining punch list items, finally. Dedication plaques are awaiting installation. The dedication ceremony tentatively scheduled for May 16th at Highland L. Bid pack 5 progress photos were shared, and we are excited to report we are on schedule and in some cases ahead of schedule. Moving and packing has proactively begun, and we are trying to stay ahead of schedule. We also discussed the furniture distribution. We discussed the 4-day work week summer pilot program. We discussed staffing update and our ability to be able to operate with what might be surplus staffing. We discussed budget communications. The committee discussed additional ways to communicate and walk through some ways to look at the general budget on a monthly basis at the second finance and operation meeting each month, as well as federal and state grant budget on a semi-annual basis. Meeting was adjourned at 12:58, and our next meeting is May 11th at 10 a.m.
Thank you. We'll now move to communications, marketing, and legislative. Vice President Forrest.
Sure, we did not meet since our last board meeting, but we'll be meeting this Friday morning, May 6th at 8:30 prior to TLT.
Okay, and then arts, athletics, and activities, the ad hoc committee.
Sure, this group met April 20th, meeting called to order at 4:07. Present was myself as chair, Ms. Dodd, Mr. Carlson as members, and our TLT liaison, Mr. Tavernier, Dr. Salam, Ms. Bjorkman, and Ms. Nemeth were present. No public comment. Regular agenda items were discussing the Michigan Arts Education Instruction and Assessment. I have to repeat that many times because it's a mouthful, MAEIA. The committee discussed the MAEIA program review tool. The TLT department will work with Cohort to begin review with arts teachers at the May 3rd cohort meeting. We discussed collaboration with our community organizations and discussed opportunities for continued collaboration with our arts and athletics groups in our community. And for other, we had a final report and recommendations. This ad hoc committee, AAA committee, will prepare a summary of all the data that has been collected over this past year. And we are data rich, so we're going to put that all out there. The intent of the report is to guide stakeholders as part of the upcoming strategic plan. We adjourned at 5:08 and we'll be meeting again May 24th, 2022 at the admin building at 4 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll now move to the consent agenda. Can I get a motion for approval for the consent agenda as presented? Mr. Weissman?
Yes, I move that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda items A1 through A2 as presented.
And supported by Vice President Forrest. We'll go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Mr. Wiseman,
Yes.
Mrs. Forrest.
Support. Yes.
Ms. Cotter is a yes. Mrs. Grismkowski,
Yes.
Mrs. Dodd,
Yes.
Mrs. Pastana,
Yes.
Mr. Carlson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Motion passes. We'll now move to unfinished business, enrollment update. Mr. Tavernier.
Good evening. Thank you, President Carlson and members of the board and of the community. This evening, we'll be sharing a presentation with updated student enrollment information. I know that this is something that the board has seen consistently. It's something, it's an annual review that we spend some time looking at our enrollment. So this evening, we'll be looking at data from our last count, which we have a fall count and a spring count each year. Those student counts make up how funding is received by the district. So 90% of our funding is received by our student count in the fall, and the other 10% is made up from the spring count. So we'll give Rose here a second to bring up the presentation for everybody, and we'll jump in. No problem. There we go. All right. Thank you, Rose. So again, our fall count, our last fall count was back on October 6th. The next, we also had a spring count this past February. As we go through the presentation this evening, we'll be talking about head count and also FTE. So just defining head count, when we talk about that, it's the number of students, but not all of our students attend full time. For example, we have some students that might be attending programs outside of district, might be OTC, or might be some of our students receiving special services. And so we'll have also be looking at full-time equivalency as part of the data. And then we'll also be looking tonight primarily at our fall count. So we do have the audited results from our fall count back from the county. And so that the data we're looking at this evening is from that count. So the first thing I want to look at here is overall in the state of Michigan. And Rose, do you mind clicking the little hide button on the bottom of the screen there? Click where it says hide so we can see the. Thank you very much. So this is just looking statewide. So student enrollment across the state. This is head count. And so this is in millions. And you can see at the range here goes from 1.38 million up to 1.54 million. Back in the 2016-17 school year, the state of Michigan had 1.532 million students enrolled. This past count, we saw a little bit of an uptick from where we were in the pandemic in the 2021 school year, from 1.4 million, 1.438 million to 1.443 million. So a loss over the pandemic of about 56,000 students statewide. And so if you think about that, 56,000 students, during the pandemic, we saw an uptick this year of about 5,000 students statewide. So for some of our districts, 5,000 students, that's larger than many districts in the state of Michigan. But that gives you a perspective from a state perspective how the pandemic impacted enrollment across the state of Michigan. The next slide here looks a little bit closer to home at Oakland County. You can see a little more variation in enrollment here. Our scale here is in the thousands, so we go from 170,000 students up to 186,000 students. Back in the 2016-17 school year, we had roughly 184,400 students in the county. This last count, we're down to 174,800 students. So since the pandemic, again, back in the fall of 19, to this year, a loss of about 7,800 students across the county, across all of Oakland County. And again, that would be not much, similar to the size of Huron Valley. So if you think about that, the impact that the pandemic has and the loss of students across both the state of Michigan and Oakland County is significant. Again, getting a little bit closer to home, this is looking at the enrollment of surrounding districts, so those districts that are contiguous or near to Huron Valley. Several districts in our area, including Huron Valley, have had declining enrollment over the past 6 years. Also, Waterford, Walled Lake, Holly join Huron Valley in that decline of students. The two districts here in West Oakland County, both Clarkston and South Lyon. Clarkston more relatively flat, but they did see an uptick in students this last year coming out of the pandemic. South Lyon we know has been a growing community. There's a lot of building occurring in South Lyon. We're seeing a lot of new development south of 96. And so South Lyon Schools has been working through some of the challenges that can present with increasing enrollment. So from here, we're going to take the next several slides really are focusing just on Huron Valley and our story here in the district. So I mentioned headcount and FTE, headcount being the number of students and FTE being a full-time equivalency. And so with some of our students being part-time, our full-time equivalency does, is slightly less than total headcount. So our scale here is from 7,000 up to 10,500. We have seen a decline in student enrollment in Huron Valley for the past several years. This past year, we had a loss of 1,800 students, but with the pandemic, when we're looking back 2 years, we have a loss of 731 students. So we did see a loss of students as a result of the pandemic. But again, as we think back a couple slides, that's very consistent with both what is seen across the state of Michigan and also across Oakland County. I should mention this does not include all of our students. This is looking at many of our students, but it does not include 83 students that we do have in our Great Start Readiness Program, which is our early childhood one of our early childhood programs at Apollo Center. So looking closer at, again, the data, this is our elementary trend. We did see an uptick this year. We had an increase of 108 students at the elementary level. We're going to spend a little bit of time looking at grade by grade where these variations in enrollment occur, but we did see an increase this year coming out of the pandemic with our elementary students. So our total enrollment at elementary is 3,313, but you can see how that compares over the past 6-7 years here. With our middle schools, we do see a continuing decline here. This last year, we lost 167 students in grades 6 through 8 compared to the 2021 school year. So again, seeing that continuing decline, and you're going to see that's really been based on our birth rates. And so the next couple slides, I'll be showing how that impact and how our changing birth rates has been impacting us at the middle school and also at the high school level. And at the high school this last year, we had 2,903 students enrolled at both Milford, Lakeland, and also the International Academy. This does also include those students that are in the International Academy and our Harbor High School that are Huron Valley students. But at the high school level, we saw a loss of 102 students this year. So I've talked about birth rate and how we've seen those changes in birth rates, and really what we talk about there is the number of students that are in the upper grades compared to the number of students that are enrolling in kindergarten at elementary. And so we'll take a look at how that impact has had a result of this overall trend of declining enrollment. This is showing elementary, middle, and high school together with the total enrollment. This slide also does not include our early childhood. I mentioned our GSRP, also our adult ed and our adult transition program students. So when you're looking at this presentation, you may see a little variation in some of the numbers. And so I've noted that in the footnote, which students are included and not included. So this is looking at counts by grade level. So looking at, again, our scale on the side here is head count going from 0 to 900 students. Our largest class this year is our current senior class. And you can see that over on the right. We have 796 students that are seniors this year compared to our lowest class, which this year is our first grade class at 500. And so this slide really demonstrates, I think, visually, when we talk about declining enrollment due to birth rates, you can really see that on this slide. We have more students that are in the high school or in the secondary level. Our middle school and high schools tend to have higher class sizes than at the elementary. I'll also mention in kindergarten, we started a junior kindergarten program about 5 years ago in 2017, 18. And so our junior kindergartners are counted as kindergarten, but I've highlighted them here in blue. So you can see that we have roughly 100 students that are in kindergarten, but they're attending our JK program. Looking at elementary, so I just want to highlight here, our average class size, looking at just grades 1 through 6. So not looking at kindergarten, but just looking at grades 1 through 6, our average class size is 531 students. And you can see that that's been pretty level. We've seen some stabilization as it relates to birth rates over the past 5 years. Looking at grade 5 and grade 6 at 511, 515 is pretty even with where we are with our current first grade class. But the difference is with our secondary level. Our average class size in grades 6 through 12, grade 7 through 12 is 695. So that has impact when we look forward to future years on programming at the middle school and high school level. And I think this slide probably demonstrates that easiest. And it's really hard. People hear birth rates, really trying to understand what that means. But over time, you can see as we project the next 4 or 5 years, that we will be continuing to see declining enrollment at the middle school and at the high school level. This gets a little bit harder to see, but it's something that I think people have always appreciated is sort of that historical. So this gives us a 6-year history on the size of each grade level. And you can see generally here, each of our grades have shrunk over time. Most dramatically here is probably 6th grade, where you can see back in the 2016-17 school year, we had 732 students in our 6th grade. This last year, 515. But you can see that charted here visually for the size of grade levels over the past 6 years. Another way to look at this, and I should, before I go to the next slide, I'll just note kindergarten here. If you look at kindergarten 16-17, we had 507 students, and then you see that big jump to 713 students. That was the first year of our JK program. And so that's the story there with kindergarten. But again, those junior kindergartners are experiencing a 2-year kindergarten program, so they don't advance into first grade. And so you'll see that that normalization as we get into the first grade, second grade, so forth going on. The next slide is similar to this, but the difference here is that we're looking at grade level cohorts. So we're looking at the class of 2022 on the right. That is our current senior class. And this is looking at historically, how has the class of 2022 changed in size over the past 6 years. So if we look at our current seniors and we go back 6 years and look to see how many students were in that class back in 7th grade, you can see there were 745 students. This year there's 796. And the interesting thing here is generally, as you look across, our grade level cohorts, our graduating classes, those classes tend to get a little bit bigger each year. And so the story there, and we've talked about this in years past, is that we are seeing some students returning to Huron Valley. So those are students that may have been attending school elsewhere, either through schools of choice or through other educational alternatives and returning back to districts. So we see that trend continuing here on this slide. So I mentioned Schools of Choice. So Schools of Choice is a program. Huron Valley Schools does participate in Schools of Choice. We welcome students from other surrounding districts, both in county and out of county. And overall, we have this past year, 917 students. This is FTE, so 917.6 students that are enrolled through Schools of Choice. And that makes up roughly 11% of our total student population. You can see that that has been trending upwards from a percentage basis back from 8.6% way back in 2013-14 to this past year, but a little bit of stabilization as it relates to overall enrollment in Schools of Choice. The next slide here is, again, talking about Schools of Choice, but we're also showing here in the red line is the number of students that live in Huron Valley Schools that are attending elsewhere. So we do have students that attend neighboring districts, and we see that as a net gain of students. So that green line is showing that between the students that are enrolling in School of Choice and the number of students that are attending elsewhere, we do see an overall net gain of students of roughly 196 students there. So that gives you a fuller picture of the impact Schools of Choice has on Huron Valley. So just a summary here, again, looking at current trends, and I spent some time on this, looking at middle school and high school. You know, our middle school enrollment right now is around 1,700, I believe, going back, and we're looking over the next 5 years for that declining down to 1,600 students. Same thing at the high school. So as we project forward, based on that birth rate and based on the lower class sizes at the elementary and entering middle school, that we see a decline from roughly 2,900 students at the high school down to about 2,500 students in the 28-29 school year. I mentioned junior kindergarten. That continues to be a very successful program, a very popular program, and we continue to attract students to Huron Valley through our JK program. And family, you know, again, through Schools of Choice and JK. And I really need to mention the work that our elementary principals, especially, and our staff at the elementary do to welcome families that, quite frankly, have choice. And we know that, and we really welcome families that choose Huron Valley. And I know our principals and our staff, our kindergarten teachers especially, we just wrapped up kindergarten orientation back in March. A lot of great work and effort goes into those things, but we are proud to welcome families to Huron Valley through those programs. And then the last point here is just our incoming kindergarten enrollment. We have seen some stabilization there. So, you know, looking at, again, that graph where I'm showing, you know, the size of our grades and our size of our classes in grades 1 through 5 are relatively stable. And so that brings us some confidence that going forward, as we look forward, that we'll see overall stabilization in the district over the next 5 to 6 years. So happy to answer any questions or comments that the board may have.
Sure. Mr. Tavernier, could you go back to slide 5? This one right here. I think this is important to point out. I know since 2010, we've been having conversations, and I think it may have been SEMCOG, Southeast Michigan Council of Governments, that started to identify in 2010 the negative birth population, and that we were going to see that over the next decade, which we, of course, have seen. But I think this is an important slide because it shows the other school districts in our surrounding community. And with the exception of South Lyon, and I want to make sure that I underscore South Lyon. South Lyon is only one of 5 locations in the state of Michigan that actually experienced a boost in the census. It's one of only 2 locations in Southeast Michigan. And that has to do with their location to I-96 and where they're situated. So we do see a bounce up there. But with the exception of that and 5, that's okay. Just put the money in the jar. But with the exception of South Lyon, and I think there may be 4 other school districts in the state of Michigan, everybody is experiencing a negative birth rate. And so it's important for this school district to continue to adapt like we have been, but it's important to get these numbers correct too. We had a gentleman that came and spoke in front of this board at our last board meeting and suggested that this school district lost 8,300 students, which clearly is not the fact. We've lost 130 this past year, but this has been a steady decline in regards to birth rate. So we can see these numbers and where the other school districts are as well. So I just wanted to underscore that. We have a duty and obligation as board members to, when facts are not correct, to make sure that they are correct. But I also want to make sure that this is framed correctly as well, that people understand this isn't a Huron Valley unique thing. This is a thing that not only the state of Michigan is dealing with, but the nation is dealing with it as well in regards to a negative birth rate. So I just wanted to point that out. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Weisman.
Yes, John, could you go to slide 3 for a moment, please? On slide 3, it talks about Michigan, but I think Huron Valley really reflects the trends that are in place throughout the state of Michigan. Over the years, looking at 2016, 17 to the present, or until 2021, we were experiencing about a 12,000 per year reduction. But due to the pandemic, and we've seen that in the paper quite often, that there was a significant decrease this past year or the year before as it relates to decline in enrollment. And then just like our numbers, and you talked numerous times about our numbers have stabilized, but there was a significant loss because of, I assume, the pandemic that far exceeds what the normal reduction of students because of the normal birth rate. Do you have any, through your professional organizations or talking to your colleagues, do you have any theory as it relates to what happened to those students and where are they? Because they're not counted anywhere.
Yeah, I think, there's been a lot of talk about this across the state. Obviously, the pandemic had a huge impact on districts nationwide. I think our story here in Michigan, we did see a loss of residents. We know that there were residents that left the state of Michigan, either moving south or to other states as a result of the pandemic. We know people are more mobile now. We know that people can work from home, can work remote, and so that's changing. I think that's part of the story, and that's changing how where people choose to live. I don't know that I have any hard data though, or anything that I could share that says, this is the story, or this is specifically what impacted us here. But I think that that's something that's always going on and always having conversation. And Mr. Carlson mentioned, groups like SEMCOG and other organizations, the census obviously in 2020 will help provide us some additional information as it relates to that.
Thank you.
Ms. Force.
Just maybe I missed it, but did you mention the high schools at Harbor High School? You have them in with MHS, LHS?
Yeah, so when
Not-
we looked at the high school slide, that included our Harbor High School. It also
Okay.
included our International Academy
It
students.
does include
yes.
the IA.
Yep.
And
Yep.
most of the IA students now, we're including the IA students whose home district is HVS, right?
It does, yes,
Okay.
correct. The other thing I would mention, going back to Mr. Wiseman's comment, one of the things that we recognize also is that Huron Valley has, I think, a lot of other communities, and we've talked about this, as an aging population. We have a lot of families that live here. It's in the Lakes area. People tend to stay here. A lot of our students are from, their parents went to school here. A lot of our staff have returned here. I'm an example of that. Grew up here, went to school here, came back and chose to live here. I think though that with that, we're seeing in the future going forward that, that is going to shift. We know people are waiting longer to have students and all of that. So all of those things go back to the story about, how many students are enrolling here. And we've seen this over time. So I've shared with, and we've talked about at Code and on the board, when I moved here in the community, I was in junior high, but some of our schools were closed at that time and they were reopened back in the late 80s. Ms. Cotter, remember when Baker came back online. And so this is not something that is unprecedented. This has happened over time. It is cyclical, and the number of students that are enrolled does fluctuate over time. So there is a story there.
I think the positive, though, is that stabilization of the kindergarten. Last year, we saw a significant decline in our kindergarten enrollment. And this year, it's picked back up, and actually it's exceeded what our kindergarten enrollment has been in past years. So I think we've stabilized. And the other just observation is that we continue to be a school district that is a destination for students that might not live in this district. And we've kept those numbers where they have and been consistently around that 10% positive growth. So,
Any other questions or comments? I guess I would just underscore this as, although this is what we face, there's a great opportunity here for us as a district, as a school board, as we go into strategic planning of how we can enhance our programming here to continue to strive to be the best in regards to the school district. So thank you for that report. All right, the next item on the agenda. Now this is a new item and it is a bond item. So, but Jeffrey, are you going to speak to the playground equipment?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
Excuse me. So a little bit of background, obviously, like everything else in the district, we have a lot of playground equipment at the elementary school that's been on site for as many as 15 and 20 years. So what we did about 6 months to a year ago was put out a bid through our consortium or a cooperative to get some vendors interested in setting up playground equipment. We did land on 2 vendors who would be a part of our cooperative and gave us pricing at that time. We went back to them to actually get equipment pricing and a list of equipment that we could start putting into our elementaries. Unfortunately, both of them were very non-responsive. Many attempts to get pricing and or updated timelines as to when we could get the equipment was not for us. So what we did is reached out to Great Lakes Recreation, which is a Little Tykes vendor. Ms. Cotter pointed out that we've had Little Tykes as part of our equipment over the last 15 to 20 years. They actually gave us a 7% discount off of what they've typically charged through a separate cooperative. And so we're getting a 7% discount. They're also offering free shipping to Huron Valley schools, which with some of this equipment that's pretty large is a substantial savings. And they're willing to lock in their pricing over the next 3 years. As we've talked about in this group, some of the thing that's a concern for us is pricing as things are changing by the week and day and month. So we brought this to the Finance and Operations Committee. We would actually be saving about $30,000 to $40,000 a building if we went with this pricing. It's going to give us upper L, a lower L, and 2 standalone pieces for each building, which is pretty substantial when you look at the playgrounds that we currently have on site. This will not preclude the PTAs, PTOs from ordering additional equipment because this pricing, again, will be locked in for the next 3 years. So where we've typically liked to go with our own cooperative, they've given us a very good deal on this price. This is something that does not need to necessarily be confirmed tonight, but we talked about it at Finance and Operations, and the committee was supportive of the direction that we had provided them. So before you tonight is an opportunity for a 3-year deal that will service all of our elementaries, including the Apollo Early Childhood, and save us anywhere from $30,000 to $40,000 a building, which is, approximately, $300,000 to $400,000 off of our bond program to be used in other spaces as needed.
So it's been typical of this board to, for any bond projects, to hear them twice and introduced and then a second time. Now, we have made an exception in a couple of those cases when we've run up against supply chain issues and so forth. Do we have any issues like that as it relates to this equipment in front of us?
It is not my understanding that we have a challenge here. They're happy to take our work if it's 2 weeks from now or tomorrow. So
And pricing won't be impacted either.
No, that's not the case.
Okay. Now, I know Finance and Operations, are we okay with hearing this 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, we just had the discussion that if the board was okay with it, we would bring it tonight. But if you want to wait till the next meeting, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Won't change the.
My preference would be to stay with the course of action of hearing it twice before the board, except in the cases of where pricing might be impacted if we don't move our supply chain. So are we okay with that, everyone? All right.
President Carlson?
Yes.
Just a couple, since we're going to bring it back, it sounds like it's the will of the board to bring it back in 2 weeks. I think it would be appropriate this time to kind of have a discussion, or at least for Jeffrey to talk about the process that was followed as it relates to determining what type of playground equipment was going to be placed in each of these buildings, because we know there's a variety of playground equipment and a variety of opinions as it relates to what type of equipment. And I think it was important because that was part of our discussion at Finance and Operations to make certain that the vetting was handled in the proper fashion.
Thank you for that, Mr. Wiseman. So what took place is once we received this quote, as well as some of the opportunities for these elementaries, they were not only vetted by staff at the building, but then to the opportunities that were made available for parents to take a look at. I know a couple of elementaries, there was even some of the pictures laid out with options to be chosen from. And I know that this was brought up at a couple of the PTOs where they had discussions about the different type of equipment. So each of these, for the upper and the lower elementary, there's 3 choices of what you would consider like a major piece of equipment, which includes a slide and, it could be just a bigger setup that's got more than one function on it. And then these standalone pieces are more for like 2 or 3 students to use at one time. So you're really looking at 2 major pieces of equipment and then 2 standalone items. And again, there was vetting by not only teachers, but the administration in the buildings as well as some of the parents. So we wanted it to be more than just, typically the director of operations and myself should not be driving the decisions made for Little Tykes and the equipment that's being put in these elementaries. So I can assure you that this was put in with much more intelligent people than the two of us.
I just imagine when you said Little Tykes and you testing a slide in the playground. So, Ms. Forrest.
Yeah, just, I know you mentioned that there's room for additional equipment if PTOs, PTAs, or teachers have an idea for something. And that I'm sure there's a vetting process for that so that it's copacetic, reaches code, et cetera, that it would enhance what we have. Because I know in the past, additional equipment has been purchased by PTAs.
Yeah, and so that was an important question, Ms. Forrest, that was brought up at the committee meeting is, will some of our buildings or really any of our buildings have the opportunity to add on to what's already being presented here? But fortunately, again, as a result of the work of our community and allowing us to pass the bond as well as the building site sinking fund within that program called for certain pieces of equipment or a dollar value associated with each building. And I'm happy to report that we're going to probably provide more equipment than was originally in that bond document and actually save the bond program some dollars. So this is good equipment. I feel confident that as a former elementary school principal and Mrs. Cotter, she was happy with the Little Tykes. Again, it's exciting. It's been 15 or 20 years since the district has really put the footprint on playground equipment. So I'm happy that we're able to, through some vetting, get some good products that the students will be able to enjoy. And again, I think the slides will work through my testing.
And then just one more question on the timeline. Is it going to be done in phases or what?
Yeah, so the goal is we have 2 buildings that will be done this summer. And then over the next, probably next summer, we're going to try to be aggressive and finish the rest of the elementaries. But we have a 3-year window, which we wanted to give ourselves just to make sure that we do the project right. And again, with this also includes wood chips that will be provided for safety, and that will be done at all of the elementaries.
Any other questions? Ms. Dodd?
Is this is this replacing old equipment or is it adding to the footprint?
In a lot of cases, the principals have decided that they want to get rid of some of the older things and replace. So as part of the bond program, it was a replacement. But certainly for those buildings that have newer equipment. So again, the district provided a major dollar allocation 15 to 20 years ago, but there have been certain buildings that have done their own enhancements. The goal is to replace the oldest of things, but those buildings are going to have some autonomy, and that if they want to keep a particular structure, this will just enhance what they already have if they decide to keep it. And we've gone through on an annual basis, the district has to go through a safety protocol. We make sure that there's no like bolts sticking out that kids might, so all this stuff has to be done on an annual basis. So this would be purely to enhance what we already have.
Okay, Mr. Weisman.
Yeah, just one final comment. You had talked about the wood chips, which is a soft surface, but this contract is for providing the equipment, the installation of the equipment and the soft surface. It's a turnkey operation, correct?
Yes.
And then also you had mentioned the timeline. The pricing that we'll be voting on in 2 weeks, that's firm for all buildings over the next couple of years?
Over the next 3 years. So
Over the next
22
3 years.
through 24, which again, as we've talked about it as a group, anytime we can kind of lock in some pricing, we're excited about that, because as everybody knows in the community and throughout the world, that's changing every day. So we're excited about that.
In that phase 1, if I was a student at, I think Highland or Oxbow, when could I expect to be able to climb up on that furniture? Or
So the goal with the 2 buildings, again, if we approve this in the next couple of weeks, is, before we get too cold into the fall here, we'll have those new pieces of equipment in place.
Okay.
And then
all right. So the delay of not approving this for 2 weeks is
a
not
2-week
going to-
delay.
But it's going to be a 2-week delay, but will that continue to get us in the timeline so that at the beginning of the school year, that equipment will be available to our students?
It'll be sometime end of summer, early fall, yes, as we talked about on Friday.
All right. Thank you.
Geez, I gotta keep calling on you instead. I mean, Mr. Weissman's answering all your questions. All right, any other questions on this topic? All right, it'll come back for unfinished business for the next agenda then, and we'll look to take a vote at that time. We'll now move to new business. We have board election terms and timeline as it relates to the Oakland Schools Board of Education. And so just as a reminder, that on May 16th at our next board meeting here, we will be designating a representative and identify the ISD candidates who we support, the board supports. And then we will consider and adopt a resolution affirming, and each board must consider its resolution at not less than one public meeting before adopting the resolution. So that needs to take place next board meeting. So I just want to give folks a heads up about that. We'll now move to board policy bylaws. As I mentioned in the executive committee report, we're going through this Neola, which establishes board policies, and we are adopting the Neola process and going through. So each of the committees has different responsibilities in regards to the section. Executive committee, one of its responsibilities is this 000 bylaws that have to do with the governance of the Board of Education. This has been distributed to each of you. Happy to answer any questions that you may have tonight. This will come back for a vote at the next board meeting. I did want to point out just a couple of things. There's a lot of sections in this policy, but 0141 has to do with student body representatives. So we have informally recognized our student body representatives over the last couple of years here, but this formalizes that process and make sure that those students who are representatives are elected by their student body that come in front of us. Also 144.2 deals with board member ethics. I would encourage each one of you to review that as well if you haven't already. 0166 deals with the agenda in front of the Board of Education, and I would highlight that to take a look at. Also 0167.3 used to be called public participation. We're changing that to public comment. So I just want to highlight that. Not a lot of changes there. And then 071.1 through 071.4 has to deal with board officer positions as well. So obviously there's a lot more board policies out there than that, but I just wanted to highlight those as a few to draw your attention to. And I would encourage Vice President Forrest, any other policies that you would like to, Mr. Weissman?
And I just appreciate the conversation that exec had. I know there were a number of questions that we had that needed to be clarified from a legal counsel standpoint. Dr. Salah forwarded those on to us and are reflected in there. At the same time, I think it's important to note that one of the prime responsibilities of Board of Education members is the policies of the school district. And I believe that it's very timely that we're undertaking this labor of love. And the time that we're spending is well suited. It will benefit not only our administration, but will have a direct effect positively on our students and our community. And that policies are a direct responsibility of the board and are also out on our website under Board of Education policies for our community to read and understand from a district standpoint.
All right, Board Policy Code of Conduct 5000 series. Who's taking the lead on that?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
Yep. So similar to what you shared, the executive committee focusing on the 0000 series, the TLT committee has been looking at the 5000 series. And so we started a couple meetings ago looking at the code of conduct. And so the first set of policies that are before you this evening for first read include the student code of conduct, and within that, I'll just highlight a couple things similarly. So things like personal communication devices, bring your own device and cell phones and those sort of things. Student attendance, late arrival and early dismissal. Talked about conduct, dress and grooming, use of tobacco, care of district policies, use of bicycles and motor vehicles is included. Also, the policies on bullying and student hazing are included in this set of policies. Disorderly conduct, drug prevention. We had a presentation tonight from the coalition regarding that. But these are the types of student discipline, and so our rights, due process are included in these policies. So I would invite the board members to review this first set of policies. There are two more sets within the 5,000 series that we'll be bringing forward. The TLT committee is working through the second set of those policies now, and this Friday we'll be looking at that third set. So we are working through that 5,000 series, but the first set really deals with student code of conduct.
Okay, thank you. Any other follow-up from the chair? She yields her time to Ms. Cotter.
Thank you. I just, reviewing our new business tonight, we have two rather large sections of board policy, the 0000 series and our 5,000 series. So those now, we've switched them around, and we're both going to be, they're both going to be reviewed by board members between now and our next meeting. So at the next meeting, we're going to have two sections likely to approve. So once the motions are made, I just wanted this board to be aware that we may need more discussion time regarding approving these. Or for questions. So I was just.
Questions or modifications, amendments.
Exactly.
I mean, if board members at large see something and they want to modify, then we will entertain a motion to approve this, and then a second, and then we will have discussion. And if through that discussion, there's deliberations to say, hey, I want to change this word to that word, or add this phrase, or delete this, then we will have, back and forth and discussion at that meeting. That's correct. That's absolutely correct.
And the only reason I'm bringing that up, I guess I was being concerned about the length of our agenda for that particular, because it will involve basically a work session during a new business or during old business next time.
Yeah, so
I don't know how, this is new, so I don't know how fast this will go.
Yeah.
Just saying.
So, yeah, I mean, we may have to be flexible with this. The intent is to do 0000 first, and then depending upon that discussion, we may table the 5,000 series until the following meeting.
Okay.
As a possibility.
Thank you.
Ms. Don.
Taking back my time. The only thing we would say about the 5,000 series that relates to importance is we want to make sure that as it relates to student code of conduct and that sort of stuff, that's settled before everybody does their signing of their agreements for the 22-23 school year. That's why we're trying to rush through that.
And when does that signing happen?
August-ish?
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Plenty of time. All right, we'll now do Oakland Schools ISD budget.
Yeah, so it's a first reading on an annual basis. The board elects to approve or disapprove the Oakland Schools budget. So what I've done here, this is for new business. I want the board to consider just looking at this at this point. This isn't for final approval, but I've given a highlight here on an annual basis. Oakland Schools provides Huron Valley Schools as well as all of the other districts within the Oakland Schools boundary with some additional assistance as far as programs and opportunities for our students. You can see here that the overall, the general funds going to be decreased by 611,000. They're going to increase the special education fund by 62, and the CFE budget by about 10,000 to an increase. Their goal is to keep a general fund policy between 7.5% and 12.5% of expected operating expenditures. As a result of the 22-23 general fund, they'll probably be sitting closer to $20,000 in operating expenditures covered. They did provide their staff with a 2% raise, and all steps will be honored. As you know, with our staff, we did that and then some for our staff this year. So we think that the increases that they're providing their staff is more than reasonable. And so we do receive PA 18 money, which is special education millage. We put a conservative estimate of $125,000. They had said that it's going to go up about between 5 and 6%, but until we see that distribution by district, and we do pay money for special ed tuition, we're just being conservative here in how much we're going to receive in new monies. So we're required to approve or disapprove by June 1st. So we have the ability to, again, table this for 2 weeks. Everybody has a chance to read through it. And then if there are any questions between now and the 16th, do not hesitate to reach out to me, and I'm happy to answer questions on that.
Are there any questions for Mr. Van Gotham? Okay. One item as I would like to direct under new business is to send to the Communications, Marketing, and Legislative Committee. And Ms. Root, you're also on that committee as well. We recognize tonight very important organizations to our school district that are tremendous advocates for our children individually as parents, but also they come collectively as one voice for every child, and that is our parent-teacher organizations and our parent-teacher associations, and as well as the parent ambassadors as well. One thing I want to make sure is that there's consistency on the website, Huron Valley's website, for each of those school pages in regards to where to reach our PTOs and our PTAs so that we can get parents involved in supporting the schools and so forth. So these are formal organizations that Huron Valley recognizes. And so I want to make sure that that the communication group, and I'm looking at Amy and Laura and Denise, so that you guys have a conversation on that. So, all right, thank you. All right, now we have public comments. Julie Klein.
My name is Julie Klein. I live in Highland. I have 2 students at Lakeland High School. I have been in this district since my kids were in kindergarten. Well, actually, we've been since they were born, but in the schools since they were in kindergarten. I've been pretty supportive of the district over the years. Lately, not as. And today, I'm speaking up about something that is not only fearful for me, but mostly for the staff that I work with at Highland Elementary. I hear that you're going to be sending more support. You have in the last couple of weeks, but it has not been enough. We have already lost staff in our special education program there, and more are planning to leave. I am a permanent building guest teacher there. I love the students there and the staff. I see the staff, including our principal, doing everything they can to make this program work. But every day, staff are injured. We get hit, chairs thrown at us, punched, kicked, spit on, you name it. It happens. I know that over the years, I've heard that a lot of staff have asked for help, and it's gone on deaf ears. Something needs to be changed with the program. I know people who are ahead of the program are supposed to come in and give suggestions. They're there for like 2 hours. They need to be there for a week. They need to see what happens every day in there. And it's gotten, I started my building, I started subbing there in the EI program for the first week I was in that school. And it has gotten worse than it was then because we weren't getting hit at that time. I just know that you need to send support Everyone is so stressed out at that school. Our resources go to that program all the time, where we only have one social worker now, and she's with that program most of the time. Anytime I am not in a classroom, I am having to go down there and support. I am happy to support my staff, and I've actually created some nice relationships with the kids down there, but that doesn't mean that things don't happen and we get hurt, and everyone's had enough, and people are scared to talk about it in public, but I'm not anymore, because it's not fair to everybody. It's not fair that we go home and cry, or cry before you go into work, because it is so stressful. It's not right. So you need to send support now, more. I can tell you the gentleman that was there today did not support us. He left the room because he was frustrated. A gentleman who was hired to help us. And it's not right. So you better do something soon. Thank you.
Okay, I have Jeff Washburn.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for letting me speak. First, I just kind of wanted to comment about the decline in the enrollment that I saw in the presentation tonight.
Mr. Washburn, this portion of public comment is for non-agenda items.
Right, I didn't even know it was agenda. I just wanted to make a comment about that presentation and what I heard, but I'm not here to comment about that specifically.
Okay.
I was just a little sad to see that, but I was very surprised at the reason being referred to as the pandemic, because of the pandemic, and not the draconian policies that were enforced by our state, our health department, and school boards like you. That's the reason why people moved out of Michigan. And I bet if you did that national study and looked at Florida and Texas and included that in your national study, you might find something different. But anyways, I'm here to talk about an email that I was made aware of today that went out to MHS staff regarding gender identity. I guess some teachers may have been asking questions about how they handle gender identity and pronouns. Miss Lauren League, I believe her name is, the social worker at MHS, sent an email out giving some information regarding gender identity to the staff. And there was also some mention of a mandatory in-session learning education session. But nowhere in that documentation did she talk about anything regarding mental illness. A lot of the items in that documentation are actually symptoms of mental illness called gender dysphoria, as well as depression and suicide. But those were not mentioned in her documentation. And I'm wondering why the social worker or the psychologist would not be approaching these students to understand their mental health instead of conforming to their ideology, which is a far left leaning ideology, and catering to what they want rather than understanding why they are not happy with themselves, why they feel like they can't identify in the body that they were born in. Many regarding transgender, if you look at the numbers, even transgender people who have had the operations don't find benefit in the end. And a lot of them commit suicide after the fact. So I don't understand why the social worker wouldn't be pointing these kids to a psychiatrist or a psychologist to understand, their mental health, and why teachers would be expected or students would be expected to conform to this as well. And why
Thank you, Mr. Washburn.
Well, with students, I'm just asking, are students going to be required to conform to
Thank
that?
you.
What happens if they don't?
Thank you.
I'd like that answered by the board at some time.
All right, we do have, there's a couple of individuals that spoke earlier on the agenda item. One of the items was an agenda item, but I will invite Ms. Levin up because this is a non-agenda item for social worker communication.
Thank you. And thank you for allowing me to speak again. I too would like to discuss the email that was sent to Milford High School staff today by the social worker. It talked about the genderbread man, making gender identity into a fairy tale, into a nursery rhyme. There is no place for gender identity in our schools. It needs to be addressed by parents. It needs to be addressed by mental health professionals, not teachers. Teachers should not be spending their professional development time learning about how to address this, how to help these kids transition, how to do the things that parents and medical professionals should be doing. Our teachers are asked to do enough. Teachers should not be encouraged to help play into the mental illness that is surrounding a lot of these issues. When children as young as kindergarten are asked what pronoun they want to go by, you're introducing an idea that didn't exist to them before. Children are not born racist, but when we start bringing up different races, we introduce that concept to them. Children are not born with a lot of the concepts that we introduce. In school, we need to be teaching reading, writing, arithmetic. We need to be teaching children how to resolve conflicts and how to be good citizens. I'm not saying that we don't want to include everyone, but the amount of time that's being spent, amount of energy that's being spent addressing non-academic things by an academic institution is really concerning. Enrollment doesn't decrease because of birth rates. And for the administration and the board to sit here and say, I don't know why the numbers are declining. People are going to homeschool and people are going to Christian schools. It's not because people are leaving Michigan, because as many people leave or as many people come. I will leave you with this. A doctor posted recently on social media, he referenced a billboard, a bulletin board in a school. He said, I've struggled with this school bulletin board shared by several concerned parents, so I turned to several thought leaders for advice. And this was a bulletin board about gender identity and LGBTQ plus situations. They offered that this faux tolerance and compassion is damaging the most confused and vulnerable kids and is an incursion into the domain of parental rights and responsibilities. Gender and sexuality are two different subjects. Gender is biological, sexuality is a lifestyle. This is not education or instruction, this is indoctrination.
Okay. We'll now move to the last speaker we have is Sherry Masson.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Sherry Masson. I'm a retired Huron Valley Schools teacher for, I understand, almost 17 years now. And no matter how much time passes, I still experience the rhythms of the traditional school calendar. They start about the end of August when I feel like I need to be in somebody's classroom setting things up. And I feel that sense of excitement and anticipation. And it comes back in May, about this time, when I felt a combination of exhaustion and melancholy. And right now I would start to feel a little sad because these young humans that have occupied this huge part of my life in and out of the classroom would be moving on. In my case, it was sending my students to middle school. And like all life passages, we often look back and use this time to take a mental inventory of what we just went through. The kids in our 5th grade classes at Brooks were given multiple opportunities to look back over that year with scrapbooks, journaling, slideshows, artwork. It was really helpful for them. And it consistently informed me about what worked and what sort of experiences would stay with them. Inevitably, they mentioned special projects like they were curious about something, and they encouraged and asked questions because they were always curious and they wanted to know and they wanted to talk about it and they wanted to do research. They always remembered anything hands-on like robotics, art projects, dressing up, role playing. Working with a group was tough and they had to get through obstacles. But these were things that they remembered and prepared them for the real world. After attending some of the school board meetings the last couple of months, And it really is gratifying to hear about the amazing experiences our current students are having and watching a school board that functions professionally and businesslike. I'm hopeful for the future of Huron Valley schools, but I also know that we can't take anything for granted. Sadly, there are some people in positions of power who are weaponizing lies about what's happening in the classrooms and around the country to benefit themselves politically and financially. And although this community has supported their public schools for the 45 plus years I've been a resident, I would encourage everyone who believes that all Huron Valley schools deserve an honest, comprehensive education that focuses on the whole child, remain actively supportive of our schools in the coming school year. So have a restful summer. Please let us know what we can do to help.
Thank you. We'll now move to good and welfare. Do I have any good and welfare? Ms. Forrest.
Just to reiterate that it is Teacher Appreciation Week, and we on the school board, I can really speak for all seven of us, plus Dr. Salah, that we appreciate what our teachers have done and all of our educators inside of our schools, including paraprofessionals, guest teachers, social workers, psychologists, who am I forgetting, guidance counselors, help me out. Pardon? Administrative staff, central office. I mean, it really does. It's trite, but it does take a village, to get our kids into school and to get them thriving in school. And then, of course, at home with their parents, which is, I think Sean mentioned it, that third leg of what goes on in our district. But this is the week to thank our educators. I believe every one of them have been champions. This year, in the past 2 years, there's been, major change and upheaval. And with grace, our educators have handled it all. They're really the glue that have kept everybody together in our public school system here in Huron Valley Schools. And really from the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank them for their service and continued service as we look forward to next year's school year. So thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dodd?
Yeah, I just want to, the one group I didn't add to that are the parents who are PTAing and PTOing all over the place this week. I can't imagine you walk into a building right now where you're not seeing a lot of love and attention paid to the staff by these parent volunteers who they really do shake the trees to get the rest of us parents to participate and contribute. And that persistence to grow the group of parent volunteers is admirable. So on top of that, we have to thank the people who are doing the thanking.
I want to call Ms. Grisomkowski. I just didn't want Mr. Wiseman to steal any of your words anymore this evening.
Thank you. I just want to say good luck to all of our AP students because we start AP testing tomorrow, I think. Today, it started today. So I say good luck to you. I know that you've worked really hard all year long. Persevere. You'll get through this, and we're all hoping for fives.
It's like gymnastics. Mr. Weissman, were you going to say that?
You took the words right out of my mouth. I just want to say this is our last month. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of excitement because it is the month of May. We only have one more month of school, and we're going to have some students that are going to leave us. But my message to those seniors that are going to leave us to stay focused during the month of May, and please celebrate your accomplishments, but please, please, please be safe, make the right decisions, and do your very best. And I too want to say thank you to not only our teachers, because it is Teacher Appreciation Week, but I do want to say thank you to anyone and everyone within our Huron Valley community that on a daily basis affect our children's lives. That's the reason why we're here as a community, to do the very best for our young people, because they are our future. And I do want to say on a daily basis, we as a board recognize you, we respect you, and we appreciate everything that each and every one of you do. So thank you.
Thank you. I also wanted to just mention here for good and welfare, This board earlier this year, the start of this year, we did something that a lot of school boards haven't done. And we did that out of a call from a lot of parents who don't feel comfortable coming up and speaking at the microphone during public comment and would like that one-on-one time. And so we established in this school district community forums where we sit down in a gymnasium like we did last, or a library or media center, like we did last week at Heritage, to entertain parents or stakeholders in the school district to come down and sit with board members in a one-on-one, face-to-face conversation. We did that last August. We did it in November. We did it last week, and we'll be doing it tomorrow evening as well. We'll be at White Lake Middle School tomorrow from 6 to 8 o'clock. That gives an opportunity for those parents, and a lot of them have expressed the opportunity that public speaking is one of those most feared things that people have, and we wanted to provide a forum. For some, it's not a challenge, but for some it is, and we wanted to make sure that their voices were heard in this school district. So we'll continue to run those forums, but tomorrow evening, May 3rd at White Lake Middle School. So I just wanted to make sure we were pointing that out as well. Anything else? All right, I will entertain a motion to move to closed session to discuss a legal opinion.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Forrest,
I'll support.
supported by Ms. Dodd. We'll take a roll call vote. We require 2/3 vote on this.
All right. Mrs. Forrest?
Yes.
Mrs. Dodd?
Yes.
Almost there. Ms. Cotter's a yes. Mrs. Grisomkowski?
Yes.
Mr. Wiseman?
Yes.
Mrs. Pastana?
Yes.
And Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
So we are moving into closed session at 8:17 PM.
All right, thank you.